You know that feeling, right? When a song gets stuck in your head and you just can't shake it.
Oh, absolutely. Like, maybe it's a jingle from years ago.
Exactly. Or that source mentioning the skip counting song a student remembered 7 years later.
Right, 7 years. It really makes you wonder.
It does, doesn't it?
Hmm.
We can remember all these complex lyrics seemingly without effort.
Uh-huh. But then memorizing, say, a list of historical dates feels like pulling teeth sometimes.
So what is the secret sauce? Why does some information stick so much better?
Well, often that effortless memory seems to have, a rhythm, a melody.
And that's exactly what we're digging into today in this deep dive.
Yeah, exploring how music, specifically singing and rhythm, plays this really significant role, maybe even a surprising one.
In how kids develop those vital pre-reading skills and also improve their memory.
Okay, but before we jump right in, maybe we should define a key term the sources keep bringing up.
Good idea. Phonemic awareness.
Right, so phonemic awareness is basically the ability to hear, identify, and kind of play around with the individual sounds, the phones, in spoken words.
It's absolutely foundational. Like before a child gets that, C makes a coo sound.
They need to hear that cat is made of 3 separate sounds. Ku, A, T. They have to hear it first.
Exactly. And looking through our sources, music schools, libraries, academic papers, even parenting blogs, they all seem to agree.
Uh-huh. That program's focusing on phonemic and phonological awareness give kids a real boost in early reading.
And the central idea we're pulling from all this material is that music can make these programs even better.
Yeah, it's not just fun and games. Singing, the sources suggest, is actually a powerful tool, maybe underused.
For literacy and memory in young kids. Okay, let's unpack this then.
Right. So our mission here is to look at these sources and figure out how. How does music actually help?
We'll look at specific techniques, maybe some of the science behind it.
And those real-world examples are pretty compelling. Plus the teacher perspectives.
Definitely. So let's start with those foundational reading skills. How does singing help kids break words down into sounds, into those phonemes?
Well, songs are built on rhythm, right? And often rhyme repetition.
Yeah.
So when kids sing these songs with the rhymes and repeated bits, they're sort of actively engaging with language patterns.
In a way that helps them just get how words come apart and go back together.
Exactly. It seems like that repetition, especially with sound patterns, builds that phonemic awareness almost subconsciously.
So instead of just hearing cat as one solid chunk, singing helps tune their ears to the sounds inside the word. And they start noticing patterns, like cat rhyming with hat or mat.
That's a key mechanism described. And the sources have some really practical techniques, too.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
One focuses on connecting the sound to actually making the sound, looking at mouth shape, tongue position.
Ah, like showing a kid how your notes make an O shape for O.
Precisely. Or maybe showing the tongue for low. And to make it really concrete, they suggest using a mirror.
Like a little handheld mirror. Or even just a phone camera.
Yeah, so the child can actually see their own mouth making the shape.
That seems clever. Adds a visual element to the sound.
It really connects the action, the sound, and the visual. Sources suggest asking things like, can you see your teeth when you say me?
Or, what shape is your mouth making for...
Oh, right. And kids usually love looking at themselves anyway, so it becomes kind of a game.
Okay, and what about using familiar songs with these sound techniques?
That's another big one. Apples and bananas is the classic example, right? Where you change the vowel sound.
Opals and Bananos, yeah.
But you can make it even simpler. Take a really well-known tune, like row, row, row your boat,
Okay.
and just replace all the words with one target sound. Maybe just low, 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 low your low.
So you're forcing them to isolate and repeat just that one sound, but it's held together by the rhythm and tune they already know.
Exactly. It feels like a really targeted practice for sound recognition, but still fun.
Makes sense. Now, beyond just the sounds, what about vocabulary? How does music fit in there?
Well, songs often bring in words and phrases kids might not hear in just, everyday chat.
Right.
And because these new words pop up in this fun, musical, often repetitive way, the melody acts like a hook.
Making the words stickier than if they just heard them once.
Seems like it. Easier to remember, easier to recall later.
So nursery rhymes giving kids words like fetch or tough it that aren't exactly common playground talk.
Yeah.
The music helps embed them.
That's the idea. And it's not just single words either. Think about song structure.
How so?
Songs often have a clear structure, don't they? Beginning, middle, end, maybe a chorus that comes back.
Yeah, like a little story?
Right, kind of. And the sources suggest this helps children grasp the idea of sequencing, of narrative flow, which is vital for understanding stories when they start reading.
Okay, so music builds foundations on multiple levels, sounds, words, even structure. Now, you mentioned memory supercharging earlier. How does that work?
Great. This brings us to mnemonics.
Mnemonics,
Yeah.
memory aids.
Exactly. Any trick or technique to help remember things.
Yeah.
And songs, tunes, rhythm, they're described as really, really powerful musical mnemonics.
Like using a little tune to remember spelling rules or historical facts?
Precisely. Or 30 Days Half September. That's a classic musical mnemonic, even if simple.
Okay, and the sources get into the brain science.
They do, and it's pretty interesting. There seems to be this neurological link. Text processing strongly involves the left temporal lobe, right?
Language center.
But recognizing melodies,
Yeah.
that seems to engage both the left and the right temporal lobes.
Oh, interesting. So the melody can cue the words, and the words can cue the melody, like two different hooks in the brain for the same info.
That's the idea discussed. Dual coding, providing multiple pathways for recall.
Okay.
They also talk about brainworms. You know, those catchy tunes you can't get out of your head?
Annoyingly catchy sometimes.
Yeah. The research suggests our brains are just almost helplessly sensitive to music. We preserve melody, rhythm, pitch incredibly accurately.
More accurately than we remember, say, a picture we saw.
Often, yes. It's like we're hardwired for sound in a special way.
Some sources actually use that phrase, wired for sound.
They do. And studies cited suggest that exposure to music, actively engaging with it, might even alter or increase brain function over time, enhancing recall.
So how does that help us actually store the information better in the first place? Encoding it
Music gives it structure, it chunks words together.
into manageable bits.
Exactly. It highlights line lengths, stress patterns through rhythm, adds emphasis. All this makes the info easier to acquire, organize in long-term memory.
And gives you more cues to pull it out later.
Precisely. More hooks for retrieval. Think about the alphabet song. The melody and rhythm lock those letters in sequence way better than just reciting a list.
That's a perfect example. And is it easier if the tune is already familiar?
The research highlighted strongly suggests yes. Mnemonics work better with familiar melodies.
Why is that?
It seems associating new information with something already well established in your brain makes it easier to slot in. You're using existing pathways. Less effort needed.
Building on what's already there. Makes sense. Okay, enough theory. Let's talk real-world examples from the sources. How did teachers actually use this stuff?
One study had some great ones, teaching fifth graders brain parts and functions.
Okay, pretty complex stuff for fifth grade. How they do it musically.
Set it to the tune of Home on the Range.
Seriously, Home on the Range for brain parts.
Yep. They used charts, kids pointed to diagrams, had hand motions for functions like hand over heart for the brainstem controlling heartbeat.
Yeah.
Lots of group singing.
And results.
Near 100% recall reported in the source. And crucially, the kids said it was much easier than just reading the textbook.
Wow, 100% recall in brain anatomy for 10-year-olds.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
What about younger kids?
Third graders learning the sevens multiplication table.
The tricky sevens. Always a tough one.
Right. They used a song called The Slinky Sevens, set to What Can You Do with a Drunken Sailor?
Okay, and get this. They used pirate props. Eye patches, bandanas, toy hooks. Sang it in pirate voices.
Pirate multiplication, that sounds ridiculously fun, but they loved that.
Source says they did. Confident, accurate recall. And the teacher noted they were so fired up they wanted to learn all the times tables with songs.
That kind of enthusiasm tells you something's working. Any examples with first graders?
Yes, teaching
Yeah.
plant parts and functions. Roots, stems, leaves. That was set to the Muffin Man. Again, charts, keyboard for accompaniment, daily practice with hand motions.
Like hands sticking down for roots, arms reaching up for stems.
Exactly, demonstrating the function.
And the impact there.
The report mentioned effortless learning, higher test scores, and a noticeable confidence boost, especially for kids who are usually reluctant or ESL students.
And that's huge.
And the teacher explicitly told them, during the test, think back over your song and sing it if necessary.
Wow. Giving them permission to use the tool right there in the assessment. That shows real confidence in the method. Were there any, bigger projects? One really stood out. A fourth grade class learned their entire California history curriculum.
A whole curriculum.
Yeah, exploration, gold rush, statehood, all of it through creating and performing a musical called California Bound.
Whoa, a full musical for history. That's ambitious.
Described as a highlight of the year. And the results: significantly higher test scores compared to previous years using traditional methods.
That's compelling evidence.
And again, the teacher allowed humming during the tests.
Clearly believed in the power of the tune. Did we hear from anyone who created these?
Yes, the composer of California Bound. She said she started making everything a song for her own kids' phone numbers, how to buckle a seatbelt.
Just saw it worked.
Yeah, saw how easily they learn that way. She said her goal was partly to keep music cool for boys and make learning feel easy, she called it.
What was the phrase?
It's stealth learning. That's what makes it fun.
Stealth learning. I like that. Learning without realizing you're working hard at it.
Exactly. And the benefits mentioned go beyond just literacy and remembering facts for tests.
Oh, really?
Oh.
What else did the sources point to?
Pre-numeracy skills was a big one.
Math stuff. How?
Well, rhythm, patterns, sequences in music directly linked to early math concepts. Counting beats, using instruments to count.
Oh.
And sources mention research connecting music and rhyme to better spatial reasoning, too.
Interesting. So groundwork for math and spatial skills.
Yeah.
What about social and emotional?
Group singing came up a lot. Fosters connection, belonging, teamwork.
You definitely feel that singing together.
And think about nursery rhymes. They often deal with things kids experience: falling, losing stuff, being scared. Singing about it in a playful way can help process emotions.
That makes sense, and it just makes learning more enjoyable, right? Builds confidence.
Absolutely. Creates a positive vibe. Plus, just the act of learning lyrics.
Requires focus.
Repetition?
Right. It strengthens concentration, works that memory muscle, skills you absolutely need for reading longer books or focusing on any academic task.
It's like targeted brain training, hidden in a song.
And another point was the multimodal aspect.
Meaning it's not just auditory. Like those examples, singing often involves movement, gestures, looking at charts or pictures.
Engaging multiple senses at once.
Which can really boost understanding and make the learning deeper. Multisensory learning.
Okay, so given all these benefits, literacy, memory, math, social emotional focus, multisensory engagement, and teachers remembering learning this way themselves.
Yeah, like 30 days, half September, or spelling tricks like, we do not eat sandwiches on Wednesdays.
You'd think musical learning would be everywhere in schools, right? Used confidently.
That's where the sources show this surprising gap.
A gap? How so?
Well, a survey and interviews confirm teachers do recognize that musical mnemonics work. They remember them being effective for themselves, Mount Rushmore mnemonics, things like that.
So they know the tools are good.
They acknowledge it works, yes. But the surprising part was many teachers reported rarely or even never actually using them in their own teaching.
Really? Why not? If they know it's effective, what's the hesitation?
The reasons were quite human, actually. Feeling awkward.
About singing.
Yeah, self-conscious about their voice. One quote was, "I don't even sing in the shower." Or feeling silly doing it in front of the class. Lack of time, or feeling they lack specific training on how to integrate it effectively were also mentioned.
So that personal discomfort or lack of confidence becomes a real barrier.
It seems so. And it contrasts sharply with those enthusiastic teachers interviewed,
Like Mrs. G, the one using mnemonics despite a self-proclaimed terrible voice.
Exactly. Or Mrs. M, the composer. They embrace it. Maybe even the silliness, because they see the results. They see how it engages kids, especially those who struggle or are reluctant.
They prioritize the outcome over feeling awkward.
Seems that way. The sources also pointed out some gaps in the research itself.
Oh, like what?
A lack of recent studies looking only at musical mnemonics, specifically for elementary students without learning disabilities, and across diverse ethnic groups.
So a lot of research might lump music in with other mnemonics, or focus on specific needs.
That appears to be the situation described. One study they mentioned, Rainey and Larson, actually had mixed results for immediate recall, but showed positive effects for long-term relearning when music was involved. So it suggests there are nuances. We need more focused research on the general population.
Right. Okay, so pulling this all together from our deep dive.
Yeah.
The sources really paint music singing. Rhythm has this incredibly powerful, multi-layered tool for early learning.
Definitely. It helps with that crucial phonemic awareness, builds vocabulary, seriously boosts memory and focus.
Supports early math, helps with social emotional growth, and just makes learning more fun, more engaging.
It taps into how our brains seem naturally wired for sound and pattern, giving us multiple ways to grab onto information and pull it back out later.
And for you listening, using this doesn't have to be complicated, does it?
Not at all. Simple things, singing nursery rhymes, making up silly songs about getting dressed, adding a beat to tidying up can have real learning benefits, way beyond just the fun of it.
It's about making learning feel playful, maybe a bit like that stealth learning idea.
Exactly. Which leaves us with a final thought to chew on.
Okay.
If something as simple, as joyful, as universal as singing can impact fundamental skills like reading and memory so profoundly, what other everyday things kids do might hold similar untapped learning potential?
And maybe more importantly, how do we bridge that gap we talked about? The gap between knowing these musical tools work and ensuring teachers and parents, everyone feel confident and equipped to actually use them effectively.
How do we unlock that stealth learning power for more kids?